Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We're Empowered Journalism, an entirely volunteer-led publication giving female and non-binary journalists a platform to write and connect with other journalists. So today we're going to be talking about all things journalism, looking at how these platforms can be used as a tool to establish yourself and build a brand as a journalist, but also how social media is and is still becoming a new type of journalism in itself. My name is Lauren and I'm Empowered admin editor, and I'm also joined by Ella, our lovely social media manager. So over to Ella.
Hi, I'm Ella. I do social media for Empowered along with my great team, and I'm also a student and freelancing at the moment. And yeah, today we're joined by three amazing panelists. We've got, first of all, we have Chandni, who is a content producer at PinkNews, and she also is the founder of So You Want to Be a Journalist. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I'm a senior producer at PinkNews and I run So You Want to Be a Journalist Instagram account, which is just loads of free resources and tips for people who want to enter the media industry. And yeah, I did a journalism degree, graduated in 2018, and been trying to just making my way in the industry since then.
Great. So next we have Charlotte Forrester, also known as Foz. She's a social media journalist at the No Media and also co-founder of Girls in Journalism, which provides an amazing community for young marginalised genders entering the world of journalism. If you'd like to tell us a bit more about yourself, Foz, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Hi everyone, I'm Foz, and my journey was sort of getting very involved in student media at Uni of Exeter with Expos and Res. And then getting involved with sort of online places like Cool Girl, setting up Girls in Journalism, which has an Instagram account, a Facebook page, and a podcast, and then working at Tyler and Lad Bible Group as a content assistant for a while, and now a social media journalist at the No, whatever that sort of title means. But yeah, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've used those Facebook pages, they're very helpful. And then last but not least, we have Monika, who is a BBC presenter, and she also does, probably seen her on TikTok in the last few years. So do you want to talk about yourself?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. I'm also in a BBC booth at the moment, so apologies if it goes completely blank and I go like this. I'm just trying to activate the lights, so it might happen. But yeah, so I'm currently at the BBC. I look north, BBC Look North, so I cover the news, I present and report on the news across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. And I am on attachment at the moment at BBC Panorama and BBC Three. So just working on my own documentary, so that's really exciting. And yeah, I guess I just did TikTok in lockdown, and now I'm just a bit obsessed, really. And so I like to utilise that a bit. I do lots of behind the scenes bits and bobs in terms of my BBC presenting, and I guess I'm a BBC TikTok ambassador now. Fancy title, but yeah, that's a bit about me.
No, thank you all for being here again. Just coming from that, Monika, I know you started out in print and your transition from that to broadcast is really interesting. I was just wondering, do you think as social media journalism becomes more prominent, we'll see more people transitioning from other forms of journalism to focus on and get involved in social media like yourself, and you did it over lockdown?
I think, to be honest, so when I graduated back in about 2014 now, so quite a while ago. And you're right. So I first got that experience in print journalism, and that's all the advice that everyone was giving to me. And I think back in the day, we had YouTube. So everyone was really keen about, what do you develop on YouTube? Do you have your own YouTube channel? Have you done like a vlog or something along those lines? And it was all quite new, actually. But I do think so. I used to just take my mobile phone. I took my iPhone with me just on these stories that I used to go on. And to be honest, if anything was happening around in my local area, so I'm originally from Leamington Spa, if there was anything juicy going on, I would just take my phone and just make random video clips that I'd used to edit together onto my YouTube channel. And I think what's great about that, because obviously I did print, but it obviously meant that, hang on a minute, this girl knows how to use social media. She can film, she can edit, putting a story together. So I almost became my own TV reporter when I wasn't a TV reporter. And I think that really helped with giving me that advance almost to come across as that multi-digital platform journalist that can not only write basics of journalism, but isn't afraid to go further and use technology and make her own videos and be creative. And it was just great because it almost gave me that booster. And these editors back in the day, they had no idea what it was or what I was going on about, but it excited them. And I think never be scared to be creative, never be scared to use social media, and never be scared to really put your own stance on things as well, even if it's a topic that interests you and something that you know more about. Go for it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Also, just moving on to Chandni and also Foz as well. I know you guys both have kind of journalism advice platforms, really great community-based pages. And just moving on from the rise of social media and that coming into journalism in the media industry, how do you feel that social media helps you kind of establish yourself and create this brand for yourself in a way that perhaps other forms of journalism don't? Yeah, I think you start with Chandni. I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's literally never been easier to start your own platform, start your own brand. And it's really great that you can build these kind of platforms for yourself. Like Monika was saying, like becoming sort of your own TV reporter. It's so easy to just take that upon yourself and start creating content. And with the way that I think TikTok especially works, it's also never been easier to grow a platform because it's showing your content to people who are interested. And yeah, as far as building a brand goes, I think it can go a long way in kind of building people's awareness of you in the industry. So there have been so many journalists that I've come across through TikTok or just social media in general, and then ended up checking out their other work and just like becoming fans of what they do. And I think it's the same for employers, not just your fellow journalists. I've had job interviews where it just happens that a few of the people interviewing me had seen my stuff before outside of me applying for the job. So I think it's well worth doing, and it can be just a great asset in helping get your name out there and showing people what you can do.
Yeah,
definitely.
If I can sort of add to that, yeah, I was, because I didn't do a master's degree in journalism, and I graduated from my undergrad in 2020 with, you know, because of COVID, suddenly was at home and all that nightmare. And I was freaking out, being like, oh, I should do a master's because suddenly there aren't these graduate jobs, but I can't afford to do a master's, or at least it feels really inaccessible to me at the moment. And I sort of built like Girls in Journalism with Izzy, who's the other co-founder, just out of this place of desperation of like, surely we're not the only people freaking out about this. And yeah, it's amazing like what we've done with it, and I've really enjoyed it. But as Chandni was saying, of like, it was actually so many skills that I learned from it. Like my other friends have had to do master's degrees to like get those skills, like the things of just the multimedia side, and being able to say that you can do social media, you can do the writing, you can manage a community. It really helps with employers. And so if you are able to like build, like create something like that for yourself, or help out with something like Empoword sort of thing, it is really just going to be a huge edge on your CV. And I think that can be a greater sort of asset and addition to your skill set, sometimes more so than like just being like a big voice on Twitter or like a bit of an influencer. Like there's a bit more of a targeting of how you're using social media that's relevant to the industry. So
yeah, that's obviously really helpful. I think it's such a useful skill set that you develop from being a social media the social media journalist. So do you find sometimes that it's difficult to like place yourself as a social media journalist? Like it's quite oversaturated on social media, and sometimes people can find that it's hard to make a name for yourself, and there's so many other people that you're competing with. That do you find that, you know, do you have any advice for people trying to do this who are trying to sort of not be swallowed up by the like holes of TikTok and Twitter?
Yeah, it's really interesting what you said about like the sort of competition of it. I get so sad when I see like other young journos or entry level journos being so competitive, or just like saddened because they see someone else's achievements and they're upset that they can't share in that joy and like celebrate with them, because their first thought is like, oh my gosh, am I not in the right place in my career? Am I, you know, falling behind, sort of thing? And I think it's been something that I've really struggled with in the past, but you've got to realize that it's not a competition. Like, you've really got to help each other out. Like, if you see an opportunity that would be perfect for someone, pass it along. The only reason why I got the job that I'm doing now at the Know is because a friend of mine saw the job opportunity, said, I thought this would be perfect for you. I think you should apply. And then I got the job. You know, we've really got to like help each other out. And I think it's also a good reminder of that. Like, it can seem like because you're on Twitter or Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and you're seeing the same faces pop up, and it seems like they are the faces of like young journos or whatever, you're comparing yourself to that, and you forget that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other entry-level people who are thinking the exact same thing as you. You're seeing like such a minority of people who just happen to have very public you know, consumption of what they're doing, sort of thing. And whatever work you're doing is no lesser. It just so happens that it's being consumed in a different way. So it's difficult when you're in like the throes of the, you know, the envy, the jealousy, or the insecurity of where you're at personally. But it's just you gotta make sure that you prioritize doing things that remind you of like the value of your own work, sort of thing. And that the only way that you're gonna help yourself like improve and like shine and stuff is if you help other people as well. So
Yeah, definitely. I think especially that's come clear with things like Empowered, which have like blown up because of social media, and that's all team effort. You know, we're all helping each other out, and obviously platforms like Say You Want to Be a Journalist or Gals in Journalism that are all like dedicated to helping other journalists. Even like mentorship schemes that like old, like, you know, more established journalists are creating for you, like younger journalists or up and coming journalists. Like, do you know what inspired you to start? Maybe Chandni, was that the fear of the industry, the kind of overwhelmingness? Is that what inspired you?
Yeah, definitely. Because I know my journey into the industry, a lot of the decisions that I made were just because I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anyone to talk this stuff through with. I was sort of just guessing, and very luckily it's worked out for me. But not everyone will even have the same privileges that I did of being able to do a degree, living a commutable distance from London, so I'm not having to pay extortionate train prices or accommodation for work experience. And during COVID, I think it's so funny that the three of us kind of started our journeys with this stuff during COVID. I just felt really bad that because of the pandemic and with lockdown and everything, people were finding it so hard to get work experience opportunities or even just jobs. So that kind of is what inspired me to create the account, because it just was so much harder than it was like when I was trying to find entry-level jobs and everything.
Yeah, no, so that there's obviously like a massive focus on networking within the social media kind of community and journalism within that. And Monika, I was just wondering, obviously you kind of started off very much with the print and the broadcast, and obviously you only really started TikTok, I gather, from your time in lockdown or something, maybe in your spare time, bit of fun, and it's just done really well. So I was just wondering, from your perspective, with the networking aspect of the social media, did you find that you were able to reach a lot more people with that aspect attached now to your career, and because it's become so successful, and it kind of opened new doors for you in that aspect?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think initially when I started social media, and then when I was at university in my journalism course, everyone said, oh, you need to build up your Twitter, you need to make a presence on social media. And I always neglected it until actually I thought to myself, I need to start applying for jobs. And I think what's amazing is that social media from the onset actually really benefited me in my career, because if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have seen this competition called ITV Breaking Into News, and that's something that's run by Media Trust, and that was plastered all over their social media accounts. And what I did do was really kind of understand the key players in the industry. So who are the organizations that can help with schemes, that can mentor me as a journalist, that can provide opportunities to go to these networking events and socialize with various editors and producers. So social media really helped me to understand what industry I'm going into, and to also introduce me to all these amazing and wonderful people. So that's what I used to do. That's initially what I used social media for. And I just think, moving down the line, I think it's great when you do a piece of work, and obviously predominantly I work in TV, and let's be honest, no one's really going to watch BBC Look North on a Monday, Tuesday evening, especially on the younger generation. So what I tend to do is put things on my social media. So after a certain story, I'll put it onto my socials, and whether that's on Twitter or even TikTok, to be honest. And I think with me starting TikTok in lockdown, obviously it started as a bit of a laugh. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I also felt a bit old. I thought to myself, oh my goodness, so everyone using TikTok, they their teens, only 20s, and I was about 20, 27 or something. So I had literally no idea what I was doing. But then I'm really glad I took the risk and I went with it. Although there were a few people that said, Monica, doesn't really look right. Is it really serious? Is it going to fit that image? And I just think it is what you make it. It really is. And I think for me, looking back, TikTok has opened so many doors for me. It's been a brilliant opportunity, because if it wasn't for me doing TikTok videos, I wouldn't have got the opportunity to be a TikTok ambassador for BBC News. And through that, I've been able to do mentoring. I've mentored so many people, and part of obviously the BBC Young Reporter scheme. I had no idea in terms of the reach that my TikTok videos would have. We're talking over 1 million views, and it's crazy because the messages I get, especially from young people, is just saying thank you. I inspire to be like you, and especially from those from a young, I guess, South Asian background like myself. And when I was growing up, I just didn't really know anyone who was similar to me. And because that's why I thought this industry, it was never going to be easy. I didn't even think it was accessible at one point. I always questioned it, thinking, God, it's so hard. I just don't see many people like me in the industry, and especially for those engaged. Well, through TikTok, I can actually do this. And through TikTok, I feel like I have managed to do that. And I just think a big part of it for me has just been helping young talent along the way, and being part of amazing mentoring schemes where I'm able to give advice, I'm able to do speeches, I'm obviously able to be in this talk right now. And then that's obviously one element of it. Another element of it is just finding new stories through TikTok. And there are so many that I've pitched through my videos, engaging with other users and audiences. And I think it's such a great platform. It's such a great platform for journalists to interact, to share stories, engage, especially the younger audience, with, politics, something they might not necessarily always engage with. And it actually works. It really does. So those are a few of the things that I can definitely take away from my TikTok experience.
Yeah, definitely. I had to pick up on the fact that you said you love to help people. I think that's clearly a common theme between the three of you, is that you're all passionate. Obviously, that's why you're here today, helping all of us. But I thought it was really interesting. Something that I've noticed on TikTok is that that it's being used to sort of give an insight to being a journalist, maybe for those who don't know what it's like to be a journalist. You always saw Victoria Derbyshire on BBC, but you might not necessarily know all the other layers of editing and the different kind of roles that you can take up, what being a journalist entails. Like, I mean, Chandni, I saw a TikTok of yours the other day of like a day in the life, and I thought that was really interesting because people just don't know what it's like. It's just like it's so useful. So I was wondering, do you think that it's useful to sort of show what goes on behind the scene, what inspired you to do that? Because I think sometimes it can be a bit scary to sort of break down that untouchable like image that journalists have.
I think you're exactly spot on. It's just kind of breaking down those barriers a bit and letting people know how much work actually goes into being a journalist, because I think some people maybe have a slight misconception that it is a super easy job to have, when in reality there's a lot that goes into putting out articles, putting out videos. If you're working in broadcast, there are so many people involved, like especially in broadcast, people in the gallery, there are producers, there are people writing scripts, writing little links and stuff for the presenters to read. There's so much that goes on, and I think it's important to share this stuff, and also so people can not only see sort of how your days are running, but also the equipment that you're using and how stories actually come from ideas to the finished product. Because I know before I got into the industry, I kind of had my ideas of how it worked, and turns out I was really wrong, and it's a lot more complicated than I thought. But hopefully by sharing this stuff, people who want to get into the industry can kind of start to learn a little bit more, and it might put them in a better place when they're looking to get jobs and everything, because they already kind of know a little bit about how it all works.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important, especially like to make the industry more accessible. It's just like, it's so important. And Monika, I remember you saying that you had mentorship schemes and they were like really useful to you. I was just wondering if you wanted to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, there are so many. It's so funny because obviously, Chandni, you were saying TikTok, it almost gives you that insight into actually what it's really like. And I remember when I did, so one of my schemes was through the National Union of Journalists, and I got a scholarship to study at university. So that, brilliant scheme. I obviously paid for my tuition fees, but through them I was able to get work experience at the BBC. And one of my first gigs there, I was at the National TV Awards. So imagine I'm at the BBC, I'm at the National TV Awards, and I'm with Colin Patterson, who's the entertainment reporter, correspondent now. And I wore heels. In fact, I wore a dress. I'm like, ooh, I'm at the TV Awards. And it was amazing. And literally the worst choice ever, because I was actually going with SIM cards, cameras, SD cards. I've never ran so much in my life. It was the busiest night of my life, and I was thinking, oh, but TV's so glamorous. TV Awards so glamorous. Could not be further from the truth, honestly. TV is not glamorous. It's very busy. There's lots going on behind the scenes, and I think and there's a lot of people that do well to show that their social media snippets. But in terms of going back to the question and schemes, to be honest, I am really grateful for all the schemes that I've been part of from a young age. I mentioned Media Trust, brilliant organisation that introduced me to ITV, and I was able to win ITV Young Journalist of the Year through a Breaking Into News scheme that they had. And then National Union of Journalists, because they're the one that granted me my scholarship to study TV journalism. Another one was BAFTA. BAFTA provide brilliant scholarships. A lot of my friends went through BAFTA, and they also hold excellent talks now and again. At the moment, I am part of the John Scofield Trust. Highly recommend that you get in the loop with them. So they're a network of journalists, and they provide mentoring. Really, they young journalists especially, they will loop you in with a senior journalist and someone that can guide you along the way. And I'm currently in the scheme at the moment, and I'm finding it so useful. A network of journalists where you can help each other out. You're providing advice, networking events, and that's just a few to name. There's so many, it's actually quite unreal. And I thought I was very much alone when I entered the industry, but literally I'm not. And I think that's one of the greatest things about social media, because if it wasn't for me seeing what others are up to and what other journalists are doing and where they're speaking, I don't think I'd be in the loop with actually the schemes that are available. So I guess my biggest advice is utilize it, make the most of it, do some research, talk to other journalists, talk to other colleagues about what they're up to. Do you know any schemes? Is there anything you're part of? Is there a membership? Because there's always something going on, and one person can just lead to an opportunity leads to schemes and talks, etc. And it's just always good to be in the know, because there's quite a few good ones around, and make the most of them. They're really
No, that's great. Thank you. The networking aspect of social media is definitely one of the massive positives, and being able to reach everyone is just so lovely, and giving each other advice and helping each other and being a community. But we were talking earlier about, obviously, platforms like TikTok and Snapchat giving us insights into being a journalist and the realities of that. And obviously there are some challenges and difficulties that come with being on social media that perhaps you wouldn't experience in other forms of journalism. And I just wanted to direct to Foz as well and just say, and all of you afterwards, but do you find there's any difficulty being taken seriously on social media? I know perhaps a lot of people might not appreciate it as much, or just being taken seriously. There's so many different things, like in comparison to traditional print experience, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do. And it's a good question, because when I have like a title like social media journalist and someone's like, oh, what does that mean? And I always like downplay it, and I'm like, oh, well, I take the news, but I put it on Instagram. And like, as if Instagram is this like thing that should be shunned and dismissed, and like, it's not serious what I do. And I really should stop myself from doing that, because it's a tool. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, they're tools that reach millions of people. Like, they are the major, like, they're the major like news outlets now. And we in the past, you'd have a radio bulletin that would give you bite-sized news, and that was taken so seriously. But now if it's in a Twitter thread, it's not taken seriously. It's a double standard, and it doesn't really track. It doesn't really make sense. But I think that hopefully things are going to be appreciated more by readers and by other journalists who have conceptions of like print. I hope that they take social media more seriously, because you are reaching so many people. It is the thing that, we have fake news and misinformation, but it's also the thing that's going to debunk those things. It's not going to be anything that can balance it out, that can battle those cases of misinformation apart from social media itself. And it's a skill to anyone. Most journalists can write a story about a crisis, about UK politics at the moment, about like the spring statement, but to package that in a way that anyone who reads your Instagram or anyone who watches your TikTok come away feeling informed, and like they have more knowledge behind them to be more confident when they talk about the news. Like, that's such an incredible skill, I think. And I think that's something that most journalists coming into the industry now are going to need to do and be able to adapt in that way. So it is a thing of that. I think it's a lot of just talking to yourself and being like, actually what I do is important, and really, forgetting the negative comments, because I think there's such a fear about like trolling when you're putting out journalism on social media platforms. But really waiting for those comments when it's someone being like, hey, I didn't know how to talk about Russia and Ukraine with my kid, and this carousel helped me. Or, hey, I thought that I didn't get politics, but it turns out that no one just explained it to me in the right way through a, you know, Snapchat. And so, yeah, it's a lot of just really clinging on to the positive feedback, and also being your own hype man, being your own cheerleader, and being like, actually, you know, when people dismiss social media, it's their own insecurities, it's their own elitist presumptions coming out. It's a reflection of them, not a reflection of value of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's with social media is so useful in that respect, but obviously if you're venturing out away from talking to just other journalists, which is like nice and safe and everyone respects you a bit more, when you go to break the barrier and speak to people and help them, you obviously face the challenges that not everyone wants to be helped, and sometimes you have to deal with a lot of criticisms, and often I find that criticism can be a lot more personally targeted on social media. Do any of you have any like advice for people dealing with that? Like, it can often be a lot more personal, and you don't necessarily see the criticisms that you get from print or website publications there as you do in a social media. Maybe Chandni, do you have anything to say about that?
I've been very lucky that on the So You Want to Be a Journalist page, everyone's quite nice and respectful. But at my last job at Channel 5, I was doing some like presenter-led content on social media, and a lot of the comments were nice and talking about the news I was talking about, or I get comments about my hair just because it looks the way it does. But then there were like every now and then there'd be a really nasty comment, and I used to let that affect me so much more than all of the nice comments I was getting, just because I think as people, you kind of always want to please everyone, and it's never nice to hear people talking negatively about you or your work. But after a while, I kind of just had to take a step back and sort of stopping myself from looking at those comments in the first place, because like at the end of the day, when I've submitted those videos to go live, I'm proud of the work that I've done, and I know that I've done a good job, because if I hadn't, I would have got feedback from my editor telling me to change it. So I know that the work I'm doing is good. And sometimes, especially on social media, I think people with anonymous profiles kind of can feel like they can say what they want. And there are always going to be people who aren't fans of what they're doing, not even always for the right reasons. But I think it's just about taking comfort in the fact that your work is good, it's valid, it's out there for a reason. Your kind of editors, managers, they wouldn't let you put your work out there if it wasn't of a proper standard. So I think just being proud of what you're doing, and if you do choose to look at the comments, focusing on the positive ones rather than just trolls on the internet.
I was just wondering, do you have, obviously we're talking about the challenges of social media as a new form of journalism, and obviously within that becomes like, you know, things about mental health and difficulties of switching off from social media, because obviously when you're doing something like maybe broadcast or print, it's quite easy to just leave the office and maybe that's it. But with social media, it's your phone, it's your laptop, it almost follows you everywhere. And just leading on from a challenge of this kind of form of journalism, do you guys find it hard to switch off, and do you have any advice in switching off, basically? I don't know if Monika wanted to go for that.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm still learning at the moment, and I'm going to be really honest, because there are times where it does feel relentless, especially if there is a breaking news story and you think, oh my goodness, why haven't I covered this, or why am I not speaking about it? And then you almost come to that point where you think, how long is this going to continue on for? Where does it stop? You're always going to have breaking news stories. And I think it's just coming to terms with it. And now I'm just accepting that, you know, I can't be a boss on everything. You know, you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, Instagram, you've got TikTok, it's an outlet. And I think before, and especially, you know, in lockdown, it really used to get to me, and I wanted to try and do something on everything. But you're only human at the end of the day. You're only one person. And now I just think to myself, oh, it's okay, it's fine. It's okay. You don't have to do this. Just take it easy. And I think I'm still learning that at the moment, I'll be brutally honest. And I think, you know, with comments that you get, say I used to do a news package and I put that out on Twitter, and then and if there was negativity, it would make me want, oh, something, and I was such a people pleaser. And I think that's my biggest thing, is that you shouldn't be a people pleaser. It's not about pleasing other people, and you always have to remember that journalism is so subjective. People will have opinions on absolutely everything and anything, and you put your content out there for people to do so. So sometimes you think, when there was an attack on my story, oh my god, I take that personally, but now I'm really good, so now I think, no, that's a story. And if anything, I quite like a comment like that, because at the end of the day, I want my content to be engaging. You need people, you want your content to create discussion, you want it to create a narrative, and that's what you're doing. But then, so I'm still realizing that, you know what, journalism is subjective. It's okay that people have opinions, that's fine. But as long as Chandni was saying, you know, my editors have given it the sign off, then I know that I am happy with it at the end of the day. It's okay if someone's not happy with it. You know what, it's fine. I don't have to make a part two on it. I accept it, and that's okay. But even, I guess, with all these breaking news stories going on, I think there is that pressure, especially when people are messaging you, or some appear in your DMs, like, oh, are you not going to cover this? Or especially if it's something, say, that's close to your background. I'll give an example on, say, the farmers' protest, because I'm meant to be from the background where it's all happening. But there's so much pressure from various members of the community. As a minority, you have to represent and fly the flag. But you have to remember that you are only one person, and you're doing the best that you can. You also have a life to live. You're only human, and you can only do what you can. And with social media, you have your day job, and then as a journalist, it's almost like you've got to do your social media as in your after that, and that you're not even getting paid to do that, but it's almost that requirement that you have to do in order to stay relevant. And I think what it's all about is just finding that balance. It's all about, oh, it's gone dark. It's all about finding that balance, and as long as you kind of have that work-life balance where you're not overdoing it, you're not going crazy, and don't feel that pressure, that constant pressure to react to something that's breaking, that's when you're good. But that pressure is difficult. It is difficult to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge pressure to stay relevant on social media and constantly be like reporting everything, especially with the things that you've spoken about before. There's definitely an expectation that you'll be consistent with things, and whilst you're probably consistent with your beliefs, you might not have the time when stories break to keep reporting that. Maybe, Chandni, do you have anything to say about like keeping relevant and constantly having to keep posting things and keep up? You know, you can't get too many like days without posting or whatever.
Yeah, it can be really difficult with like knowing how often to post, and I definitely feel the pressure to be able or to have to keep creating content. Like, but then last year I had something come up with my family, and I was just like, you know what, I don't have the mental capacity to be posting at the moment, so I'm just going to take some time off. And it was fine, nothing bad happened, but I definitely did feel guilty initially for wanting to take a step back. But I think it's important to remember that if you need a break, definitely take it, because forcing yourself to carry on working, carry on posting, as Monika said, it's just stuff you're doing on the side. It's not like it's a job that you are committed to and you're being paid for and all of this. So yeah, I definitely think it's important to look out for yourself. And if anyone is thinking about starting their own channels, I don't think it is necessary to post every single day. It's better to kind of maybe just commit to 1 or 2 posts a week, because that way it's a little bit more manageable. And if you're for some reason not able to stick to that, like people aren't going to care. Honestly, everyone most people on the internet are just going to be happy that you're taking time out for yourself and making sure that you're okay. And they're definitely, I don't think there's huge pressure to be posting every day if it's just not something you're able to do.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's also a lot of insecurity on social media. Definitely, like, you know, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing it enough? Am I talking about the right things? It's just like, it's constant. It's just so much comparison, and you don't feel like you're being the TikTok journalist or the Instagram journalist or whatever. Foz, do you have anything have you experienced that sort of insecurity of like, am I am I enough with this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. It is a thing that I think, yeah, I think it's with social media, because as you were saying before, it's in your pocket, and you also have it's your professional life and your personal life. It seeps into your identity so much. And like journalists in general, like journalism is a big part of their identity. And so social media sort of sometimes can like worsen those really like sticky parts of it. But it is just really like setting up those boundaries for yourself. As both like Chandni and Monika have already said, those boundaries are so precious, and it means that you don't start resenting those like parts of your identity. You're not resentful of the fact that like, oh, I'm this TikTok journalist, but I'm very unhappy whenever I have to post a video at the moment or whatever. And you got to make sure that what you're putting out is still purposeful, and that's making sure that, you know, you're not just churning it out for the sake of it. You're putting it out because you want to connect with an audience, because you want to make sure that a certain topic is getting the coverage that it deserves. And if that means like taking a break from things and then returning to a platform when you can do a better job of it, then fantastic. Obviously, that's much more difficult when it's your day-to-day job. Like, I can wake up and think, I really don't want to do an Instagram story series today, but I have to. Like, I'm being pet. I don't get a choice in this. And so then you have to really make sure that you're sprinkling in that purposefulness. Something that I really enjoy about working at The Know is that I can, you know, I'm spending hours reading about Ukraine, and it's difficult, but then I know that I'm helping someone else better understand it. I'm finishing it off with like a take action, like please donate to this, or join with this scheme. And so social media is like such a toxic place with like, you know, toxic place of bad news and stuff, and constant feed of it. And you've got to make sure that you're still feeling like you're having a high quality screen time with it, and that you don't become resentful of the news, that you still feel that it has an empowering purpose. Otherwise you're going to be resentful at that part of your identity of like you as a social media journalist. So yeah, that was a bit around the houses, but yeah, it's all about the boundaries in your relationship with social media. And yeah, just if you start to get a bad feeling with social media, really questioning it and sort of checking yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just quickly, because we haven't got loads of time left, just wanted to bring it back to just giving some advice from you all on starting out from nothing. So I'm a journalist. I want to be on social media. How do I have the confidence? Because I know it can be daunting putting yourself out there and creating an image for yourself. But yeah, just kind of basic. What is your advice? Starting with Monika.
I mean, it depends if you want to do it, really. I knew I just wanted to do it, but I just didn't know how to do it. And obviously, when you look around you, there's so much competition, and you compare yourself to others, which you should never do. You're in a league of your own. Self-belief is everything. And I remember I went through a bit of a rocky patch thinking, what do I do? How am I going to do this? But you know what? Just be that yes person. When everyone else is telling you no, you prove them wrong. People told me not to get TikTok. You know what? I still did it anyway, and I'm really happy with the outcomes that it has had. I've been able to help so many, and I just think when it comes to, if you want to enhance and if you want to build up your social media platform, go for it. You know, don't be scared. Oh no, like you just get put off by other people, or you feel intimidated, or you compare yourself. Our minds trick us into believing that we're not good enough, but we are good enough. You are good enough. Have that self-belief, have that confidence. If you have a vision, you can make it happen. If you have ideas, or you just feel like, oh, how are you gonna do it? Talk to someone. Just reach out. Who do you like on social media? Who do you think, oh, do you know what? I might have a chat with them, or yeah, maybe they could give me advice. Go for it. You have nothing to lose. I think that's the best thing about journalism, is that you can pick and choose who your mentors are. I have gone to, like Louise mentioned my mentor, because I used to love watching her on breakfast. So if you like someone, go to them. Please help me. Big fan of your work. I'd love to do something similar, and they'll be able to really help you with the vision that you have. And I think, personally, I made content that was unique to me, and that's just what made me different a little bit, because obviously I was an expert in some of the topics. So my first news report was in skin whitening, and my auntie had an experience with skin whitening, so I was able to utilize my personal experience, my cultural experience with a topic that, quite honest, won me a news award. And so, whatever you're passionate about, go for it. Seek advice. If there's people you like, ask them for advice, and have a look at who's doing what, and just don't be scared. Trial and error. You're never going to get anything right the first time. Have a look. Does it work? No. Take another route, but just don't lose confidence. You have got this. 100%. I believe in you all.
Chandni, any advice?
I would say for the confidence thing, because that's something that I was also really worried about. I was like, oh my God, people are gonna think I'm cringe. So what I did was make a separate Instagram account completely. I didn't follow any friends or family on there. I just made it and then followed a bunch of like separate journalism accounts. So it wasn't like, because I was so concerned with people seeing it and being like, oh, what's she doing? So I just made a completely different account. So I really recommend that if you're nervous about what people might think. But then also, I realized afterwards, like, do I really care if people think it's cringe? It's something that I really want to do, I'm really passionate about. And if someone doesn't like it, like, that's their problem. I think it's easier said than done, but try not to let the opinions of like what other people think stop you from doing what you really want to do. Because also, if they are really like your friends and if they do care about you, they're going to support you through whatever you might do. And they might think it's a bit weird, or they might not understand it, but they're not gonna, or hopefully shouldn't, just shame you out of doing it. I think just be your own biggest fan and go for it.
No, that's great. Thank you. And Paul?
Not to sound too repetitive from what these guys have already said in a far more articulate way, but the mentorship thing is like Monika's like list of mentorship schemes. That is so valuable. And I'd also like to shout out Global Girl Media, where I had Kim Rao from BBC as a mentor, because I think it can be nice on social media to connect with other journalists your age, but also I think you've got to have like layers to your network. You've got to have the people who are far more experienced, who can act as the mentors, and you can go to for just like a comforting word from someone who has been doing it for a lot longer than you have. Also people who are fresher to the industry than you. And then also your peers who are like your hype squad, who are like, we're on in this together. I would also say don't freak out about, like, if you want to go into digital journalism and social media journalism, you don't need to be an influencer yourself. Like, I think that the best people at social media journalism, I always then look at their Twitter account and they have like 254 followers. And I'm like, you have hit the sweet spot. That is amazing, because you know how to do it as part of your job, but you don't have this pressure to then be constantly churning out stuff on your Twitter that you don't want to be putting out there. And, at Lad Bible, like, I worked with some of the top social publishers in the world, and they just had like 500 Instagram followers. Like, it's no reflection of how many followers you personally have, of how good you're going to be at your job. So don't start freaking out that you suddenly need to go viral on Twitter. You don't need to do that. But yeah, you just have like got to have the confidence in yourself, as like Chandni said. Like, it can be a very anxiety-inducing job, and you've, as much as like your peers can help you out and your mentors can help you out, you've got to be your own hype man. You've got to give yourself the pep talk. But then also at the same time, sorry, not to completely dismiss what I literally just said, but also I think journos can sometimes think they're the most important people in the world, and we're doing very important work. Like, oh yeah, of course, but also we're not always that interesting. Like, please put people in your circle. Like, I make sure that not all my best friends are journos. I make sure that I have people who are completely separate from the industry and have no idea what I'm talking about when I say like things like, oh, well, you know, MailChimp, Slack, you know, all the things. You need to get out of the journo bubble, otherwise it's gonna burst on you. And yeah, you've got to make sure that you have a sustainable lifestyle with it. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think the journalism world can be a little bit all-consuming at times. Just wanted to say, if anyone wants to send in any questions, just pop them on the chat and we will endeavour to ask them. But we had a question on our Instagram this morning asking about sort of building up a portfolio and like what experience you'd recommend, because obviously anyone can start a TikTok page, but it's like can't do everything, so you've got to prioritize things. Like, would you recommend like still doing print journalism as well, or you know, focusing on what you want to do in the future? Like, what are your thoughts? Obviously you've all had different paths into the world of journalism and social media.
One thing that I will say is that I think it can be easier to get sort of well-formed work experience schemes through print still, because they've just been doing it for decades. Like, my first work experience opportunities were through my local newspaper, because they've got the whole system behind them. They know how it works. They constantly have like a conveyor belt of you know, young labour doing their bits of work experience, and I think it does give you the sort of foundations with print journalism of just like writing a good story, and then you can use other forms of work experience of like doing social media management for a business or whatever. And you know, like, one good thing that came out of the pandemic was our embracing of like the remote lifestyle and using that to your favor. But I think there's always transferable skills, and if you can make sure with your portfolio that you can write a good story, and then also show with your portfolio of like, and then I can package it in a TikTok video, I can package it in a Twitter thread, whatever. Show that you have that diversity in forms with your portfolio, but also show where like the strength of your voice is in. So if you're really passionate about like politics, activism, or wellness, lifestyle, whatever, or just that you have a tone of voice that is so warm and friendly, also like objective and like cutthroat. Yeah, I would say get that diversity in forms, but make sure that there's sort of a clear voice running through it of like, you can be trusted to tell a story, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, Charlotte, no, you're completely right. I think the way journalism is going now, and say working at the BBC, it's so multi-platform, where I thought when I first started my job at BBC Look North, it was all, you know, TV, senior reporter, presenter. So wrong. You know, it's about, I do radio bulletins, I have to do radio live hits, I have to do online copy, I'm trained in social media, I can do, it's about being multi-skilled. And now obviously working in long form, so documentaries. And I think I was quite fortunate. So from a young age, I knew I wanted to work in journalism. I just didn't know what sector I wanted to work in. So that's when I personally just explored different avenues. I went magazine, newspaper, TV, radio, PR, everything and anything. And then obviously social media, I did my own YouTube. And I just think, don't limit yourself out with work experience. Try it all, because honestly, it's great to have it on your CV. It just makes you more of an all-rounded journo, I reckon. So when you come into the interview, you might think, it's like for print, but actually when you do print, there are some social media, there are digital requirements. When you do TV, especially at the BBC, there's requirements for it to be multi-platform. So to be honest, whatever, print is always great. I started in print. It's the best way in terms of journalism and nailing down the story. But in terms of the sectors, learn, just take on the extra bit of experience, because there's no harm. It will just look really good in your CV.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. I think we've finished now. I've only got a couple minutes. But thank you again, all three of you. It's been a pleasure, and you've given us some really insightful perspectives into social media and journalism. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I have to say thank you. It's been some really insightful advice, for myself as well. I will be definitely taking a lot of that on board. And I just wanted to say that obviously with Empowered, if anyone is looking to get involved in print journalism, we mostly do print, but if anyone wants to get into social media, we join our Facebook page, and we can get you started right away on some TikTok content or whatever you want to do. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us. Take care.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.